Shadowheart is one of the most popular companions in Baldur's Gate 3, and this build lets you stay true not only to her origins as a cleric, but the Trickery domain as well. I'm excited to share this build, and it's incredibly well rounded. Not only will you have access to level 5 cleric spells, but this character can fill your needs for stealth and lockpicking. On top of that, it has huge boost to dialogue options with spells like Charm Person and cantrips like Guidance. All of this is available as a level 1 cleric as well. As a level 2 cleric, you'll get access to Invoke Duplicity, and this allows you and your allies to have advantage on attacks if both the illusion and party member are within 3 meters of it. This is amazing for taking down those hard to hit targets, and on top of that, it uses concentration, meaning we can use that to proc various pieces of equipment that synergize well with this build. Now, before we get too far, I'd actually recommend you start this character as a level 1 thief. This is because you'll gain the weapon proficiency for hand crossbows, and get the ability to specialize in 2 proficiencies, which will really help round this character out. And as you saw a moment ago, sneak attack will synergize really well with this build for additional damage when you're not casting spells. After the first level of thief, I put the next 5 levels into cleric. So here's what I'd recommend at level 1. You put that first level into rogue. This will give you the hand crossbow weapon proficiency. In addition to that, you'll get sneak attack melee as well as sneak attack range. You'll use the range version of this a lot. As you saw in the intro there, you can even cast certain spells like Invoke Duplicity and use that to be the means of how you gain an advantage, allowing you to do additional damage if you don't want to use any of your spell slots. For ability scores, I would recommend putting your ability points in this manner: 16 into Dex, 16 into Wisdom, as well as 14 into Constitution. This will help with some saving throws as well as just your survivability, and Dexterity and Wisdom are essentially both going to be main stats for us. Now, this will change once you find the Gauntlets of Dexterity, which are actually available in the first act, and these are from the Kresh Quartermaster in the Mountain Pass, so definitely keep an eye out for these. And remember, you can go to the Mountain Pass even if you choose to go a different route. You can always go to the Mountain Pass before it becomes changed or the landscape becomes altered, so to speak. So make sure that you pick that up from the Quartermaster, and then you can respec and dump your Dexterity entirely using the Gauntlets to boost this up to 18. For skill proficiencies, I would double up on Sleight of Hand as well as Stealth. Like I said, this character is actually going to fulfill the thief role of your party, meaning that you can lockpick, you can pickpocket, you can stealth around, so forth. The other 2 you can use for whatever suits your party the best, depending on what else you have fulfilled or what you would like. Personally, I like acrobatics and even athletics here, just to help resist being shoved, since you're going to be using hand crossbows as your main source of damage, or non-magical damage, I should say. You'll often be looking for higher ground, so you want to make sure that you aren't getting shoved off and taking additional fall damage and so forth. At character level 2, we'll put our first level into cleric, and we'll be doing this for levels 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That'll give us up to cleric level 5. Now, what I would recommend here for cantrips is definitely taking Guidance. This will give you an additional 1d4 to ability checks, very strong throughout the course of your playthrough. The other 2 are a little bit more flexible. You can certainly use whatever you feel is best. Personally, I'd recommend Resistance as well as Sacred Flame, and this just gives you another damage source or type of damage that you can deal to targets, other than just always relying on the physical damage from your hand crossbow. For subclass, we'll clearly select Trickery Domain. This will give us Blessing of the Trickster. This grants another creature advantage on stealth attacks. And on top of that, it's a concentration spell. So this will allow you to have a partner in crime when you want one. And also that concentration effect will be a means of proccing certain things and equipment that we have as well, because we'll be sticking a lot of concentration type pieces on our character. So the fact that we can do this preemptively before combat starts, or if we choose, we could use an action to do this and still get 2 attacks with our offhand crossbow as well. We just have some options and flexibility here. For prepared spells, we'll talk about those once we reach character level 6 and have access to 3rd level cleric spells. At character level 3, we'll pick up some more class features. This is going to be channeled divinity charges as well as level 1 spell slot. For actions, we'll get Turn Undead and Invoke Duplicity, which you saw in the intro. Now, Invoke Duplicity has a lot of other uses as well. You could cast this into melee range of the enemy and then have your melee characters get this advantage on attack rolls as well, just allowing you to do more consistent and overall more damage, so very strong. And for Turn Undead, make sure you don't forget about it. There are a few situations in the game in which you can take advantage of that, but it's very powerful when that situation arises. At level 4, we'll continue to get additional spell slots, as well as access to level 2 cleric spells. On top of that, we'll get some Trickery Domain spells, and these are very powerful. The first one is Mirror Image, allows you to have an additional 9 armor class, and for every duplicate that goes down, you'll lose 3 of that armor class until you return to your regular amount. In general, this is just an enormous boost to armor class for almost all characters, and very nice for this character if you want to sneak around open and occasionally do get caught. You have Pass Without Trace, which will call forth a Veil of Shadows and Silence. This will give you and all nearby companions a plus 10 bonus to stealth check. This will use your concentration, and it lasts until a long rest, which makes it perfect. Not working against the clock here, and you can take your time, get into the perfect position, and then go forward with the combat. Character level 5 will gain another cantrip. The cantrip choice should be fairly flexible at this point. I do like to pick up Light personally. We'll gain some more spells, and we'll get our first feat. Now you may have the Gloves of Dexterity at this point or be very close to them, so your ability scores might look different than this overall, but by selecting ability improvement, you'll be able to push your wisdom up to 18 regardless. Character level 6 will gain access to level 3 Cleric spells, as well as another pair of Trickery domain spells. First one will be Bestow Curse. We can curse a creature with our touch. The curse either bestows disadvantage on checks and saving throws or attacks. It also allows us to deal additional damage to the target or rob it of its actions. The other one is Fear, and we can project an image so frightening it makes targets drop everything, including their weapon, and become fearful. They'll be easier to hit and cannot move. Overall, I find Fear a better spell, but other people may have a different opinion on that. This is nice to have. It'll always be prepared as well. Now at this point, we'll go ahead and cover the spells that I would recommend. I would definitely recommend Spirit Guardians. This is one of the strongest spells in the game, and you get this as a level 5 Cleric. In our situation, we'll get this at level 6 for our character level. Incredibly powerful. You can cast this. It puts an AoE aura around you, and you can start weaving around, targeting different enemies and having it hit them, and then moving on to the next target. Then if they walk into it on their own turn, they'll take additional damage as well. Glyph of Warding. I like to pick this up just because it gives us access to many different elements in terms of dealing damage. There's a variety of other effects it can do as well. However, I find the damaging components typically the most useful. Mass Healing Ward. I like this as well as the regular Healing Ward because they're bonus actions. Very strong spells here. It gives you the ability from 18 meters to pick an ally party member up or give them a little bit of a recovery here. In general, I try to reserve these for picking party members up when possible. Aid. This is a tremendous spell as well. Now, this will do 5 healing and increase their hit point maximum by 5. It lasts until long rest, meaning you can cast this before you go into combat. Give yourself a shield, so to speak, and it doesn't count as a temporary hit point, so you could use this in conjunction with temporary hit point sources. This is an excellent candidate for being upranked and giving yourself even more benefit of this spell. Spiritual Weapon, a tremendous spell as well. This is a bonus action, and since we'll be going into the subclass Thief for our rogue as we continue to get levels, we'll have an extra bonus action, meaning we can cast a regular spell, fire off an attack with our offhand, and put Spiritual Weapon all up on the same turn. Alternatively, we can cast a spell, use one of our healing spells like Healing Ward, which is a bonus action, and summon a Spiritual Weapon. So you'll see the opportunity to get this out, keep it out on the battlefield, and work as a decoy, just distract enemies. Hold Person, very nice. Is it as strong as Fear? Probably not in my opinion, but it's still a nice pickup to have. And in terms of level 2 spells, you'll primarily use the majority of them for Spiritual Weapon and use one for Aid. And then a lot of times you'll be doing your rest and recovering them. Hold Person is just what we take because I think it's the next best one, but you could certainly swap this out for something like Silence if you prefer. Bless. This will bless up to 3 creatures. They gain 1d4 bonus to attack rolls and saving throws. Very powerful, lasts for 10 turns, and makes use of the concentration. I like to pre-buff this more than anything if I know there's a combat encounter or in a saving throw that I want to protect my party from. I like to use this ahead of time as opposed to using it mid-combat. When I'm in the middle of combat, I find there's other actions that might be a little bit more beneficial, but having this going in and getting 10 turns of this additional effect is really nice. Healing Word, which we covered before, and Sanctuary. Now, Sanctuary is a level 1 spell, and this allows you or an ally to no longer be targeted until you attack or harm a creature. You can still take damage from area spells. At this point in the game, there aren't a ton of enemies using area spells, so I find this value really high. It allows you to protect a target rather than having it go down if you put somebody out of position or anything like that. And again, this works on allies, so it doesn't have to be your party member. And there's a couple of encounters that you'll have where it's difficult to keep the allies alive, and if you're looking to do that in your playthrough, Sanctuary can help you there. Character level 7, we'll put a second level in Rogue now. This will give us access to Cunning Action Hide, Dash, and Disengage. All three of these are very strong skills, and these are bonus actions, meaning you can do a regular action and then use this as your bonus action. And at level 3 for Rogue, we'll take the subclass Thief, and then we'll get an extra bonus action from Fast Hands. So these are going to synergize really well. As mentioned, character level 8, we'll put that third level into Rogue, select the subclass Thief. That will not only give us Fast Hands for the additional bonus action, but we'll also get second story work, giving us resistance to falling damage. For characters level 9, 10, 11, and 12, we'll put these into Cleric, and I'll cover the spells again at the end of this, giving us kind of a part 2 version of the spell, so to speak. We'll gain additional Channel Divinity charge, as well as a level 3 spell slot here. Level 10, we'll gain a pair of Trickery domain spells. We'll get Polymorph, which we can transform a creature into a harmless sheep. This is actually pretty good. It lasts for 5 turns, and essentially they can't do anything. They just wander around as a sheep. Dimension Door, very good spell. This will teleport yourself and up to 1 adjacent ally to a place you can see. The ally cannot be larger than medium and needs to be within melee range for you to cast this on them. But overall, a very strong spell. Essentially lets you teleport yourself and another ally. Again, not just a party member, an ally, so very useful. At character level 11 will be our 8th level in Cleric, so we'll gain an action, and this is Divine Strike Poison. This actually works for ranged and melee attacks, regardless of what it says on the tooltip here. You can perform this at range, so this gives us now 2 options when we attack. If we have Sneak Attack, we can proc our Sneak Attack first, and then on the following attack, we can proc the Poison, just overall dealing more consistent and higher damage numbers. And for available feat, I strongly recommend Warcaster at this point. This will give us advantage on saving throws to main concentration on a spell. We're using a ton of concentration spells, so this is very handy. We can also use a reaction to cast Shocking Grasp at a moving target from melee range. This does decent damage, especially once you get up to levels like we are now. Is it the greatest thing? No. But it's some additional damage that you weren't going to do before, and overall our ability with melee weapons isn't fantastic, so this is just a better option. Character level 12, we'll gain our last 2 Trickery domain spells, and this is going to be Dominate Person. You can make a humanoid fight alongside you. Every time the creature takes damage, it makes a wisdom saving throw against the domination. Allies can't be dominated, but this is very nice because it works on a number of targets, and the later you get in this game, it's almost like the more humanoid targets you find. So very useful around the time you pick this up. Seeming, disguise up to 4 members of your adventuring party. This is just a souped up version of Disguise Self. Once at max level, I like to go with this setup for prepared spells, and you can always change this if it's needed for the situation. For 5th level spells, I like to take Insect Plague. There's just not enough spell slots to choose both Insect Plague as well as Flame Strike, and I think that Insect Plague just functions better, at least in this particular game. This is going to last for 10 turns, and again uses concentration, meaning if you position this well, you'll get a ton of value. On save, targets will still take half damage. This is just fantastic, especially in a few of the late game encounters. Mass Cure Wounds. This actually costs an action, and it's really the only healing spell I take that uses an action, so keep that in mind. This just does a tremendous amount of healing overall. You also have the ability to cast this on allies, which is the reason that I like this. You'll most likely have allies as you get towards the final stages of the game, so you'll have a number of party members, summons, allies, and so forth, making use of all the targets that you can with this. For level 4 spells, I like to take Banishment. It'll temporarily banish your target to another plane of existence for 2 turns, just completely removes them from the encounter. Guardian of Faith. This will summon a Divine Guardian. It has a decent size AoE range, and every time it deals damage, it loses an equal amount of hit points, essentially giving this a maximum amount of damage that it can deal. Freedom of Movement. Snap an ally out of a stun. On top of that, difficult terrain can't slow them down, and they can't be magically paralyzed or restrained. It's the ability to snap them out of a stun that I'm most interested in. This is very useful, can completely save a character just from being able to break that stun, and once you use it on them, the effect lasts until long rest, so you can save this until needed, and then give them the other benefits as time goes on. Spirit Guardians, again, this is just an incredibly powerful spell. Mass Healing Ward, for the same reasons we took it before, just allows us to, from 18 meters, to pick up targets and do some additional healing for everybody else. At this point, I've actually swapped in Animate Dead. I just find that summons are very strong in this game in general. They're strong from start to finish. However, towards the end, just having additional bodies on the battlefield sometimes feels mandatory. The remainder of the spells are all taken for the same reasons they were before. Aid to pre-buff yourself essentially and up-rank this when possible, although you will have a limited number of spell slots for level 5 and level 4 spells. Spiritual Weapon will be the main consumer of your level 2 spells. You'll just keep summoning this for an extra body on the battlefield. Healing Ward, that 18-meter range to pick an ally up. Bless for pre-buffing again. And Glyph of Warding is still kind of a situational one to me. This is really the best AoE nuke for raw damage that you might have at this point. But in general, most of your level 3 spell slots will probably go to Spirit Guardians. So if you feel like you can get more value out of something else, feel free to take that as well. I hope you enjoyed the build, and as always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.